Okay, guys, we're back here with our coach book, and we're looking at our transfer heat, which is lesson 2. If you have been typing on Ed Puzzle, you have been getting the answers and making sure that your study guide, because when we go to study for the EOG, the only way that you're really going to make a difference here is if you're studying your notes, because a science test is just applying what we've already gone over. So if you want to follow along, we are on page 46 of our coach book, and we are going over the transfer of heat. That's our lesson for right now. Okay, you get the feel of warm on the sun on your skin. On a hot day at the beach, the sand feels hot on your feet. On a cold day, the air in the room is warmer near the ceiling than near the floor. All these things happen because of the movement of kind of energy. This energy moves in a different way. You have learned that energy is the ability to make things move or to change. All matter is made up of tiny particles that are moving. Thermal energy is the energy in these moving particles. We feel thermal energy as heat. Heat always flows from a warmer object to a cooler object. Cannot stress that enough. It always moves from a warmer object to a cooler object. This movement of heat is called a heat transfer. An object becomes cooler as heat moves out of it. An object becomes warmer as heat moves into it. When warmer objects are put together with cooler ones, the warmer objects lose heat and the cooler objects ones gain heat until all the objects are at the same temperature. The graph below shows the transfer of heat from a warm object to a cool object. So if you look at the time at minutes, you'll see that a warm object is cooling down, but then the cooler object is warming up, and eventually they become the same temperature. Okay? There are 3 ways heat transfer can happen. They are called conduction, convection, and radiation. Imagine you were walking barefoot along a beach on a hot summer day. After walking on the sand, your feet feel hot. Heat moves from the hot sand to the soles of your feet by conduction. Conduction is the transfer of thermal energy between things that are touching. When 2 materials are touching, they have different temperatures. Heat moves from the warmer one to the cooler one. In other words, heat moves from the hot sand to the cooler soles of your feet. When sand gets hot, the particles make up the sand move very fast. They have a lot of energy. When you walk on the sand, the particles that make up your feet touch the sand. The hot particles of the sand bump against the cooler particles of your feet. Some thermal energy is transferred from the sand to your feet. Your feet gain thermal energy, so they feel hotter. So the sand is transferring into your feet. And this is conduction. Think about it. Conduction, it's touching you. You can't have conduction unless you are touching another object. So let's see if we can answer any of these questions here. Energy is the ability to make things blank or change. See, energy is the ability to make things, look at that first line, understanding thermal energy. You've learned about energy is the ability to make things move. So over here, you're going to write move or change. All matter is made up of tiny particles that are always moving. Thermal energy or heat is the energy of these moving. What is it? Always energy of these moving. See it? It's in that first paragraph. Well, really the second one. Moving particles. Heat always flows from a blank to a cooler one. What did I say? It always flows from a warmer object or a hotter object. I'm going to write warmer because it's right here. Warmer object to a cooler object. The movement of heat is called heat. What is it doing? It's heat transfer. An object becomes blank as heat moves out of its warmer as heat moves into it. An object becomes blank as heat moves out of it. So if an object becomes cooler as heat moves out of it and heat moves into another one. When warmer objects are put together with colder ones, the warmer object loses heat and cooler ones gain heat until all of the objects are the same. What are they going to become? The same temperature. There are 3 ways to heat transfer can happen. They are called, what are the 3 ways? Do you remember? Come over here if you don't remember. It's in that very top part right there. They are called conduction, convection, and radiation. So please make sure you write that over here. Conduction, convection, and radiation. Conduction is the transfer of thermal energy between things that are blank. So, what is conduction? It's the transfer of thermal energy between things that are, look at that definition, touching, heating a pot of water on an electric stove, an example of, we have not gotten to that part right there. We've talked about the beach, which is one of Miss Hines' favorite places to be, is the beach. Right here, we're at the heating part. Heating a pot of water on an electric stove is another example of conduction. Heat moves from the hot surface of the stove, of the metal, of the pot that is touching the stove. As the bottom of the pot gets hot, heat moves from the bottom of the pot to the cold water that is touching the pot. Conduction also moves thermal energy through parts of a single solid object. As the bottom of the pot gets hot, heat moves from the bottom of the pot to the middle of the pot and then to the top of the pot. It moves from the top of the pot of the lid and the metal part of the handle. So all of the heat, because it's all touching, is going to start spreading. Iron, silver, and copper are all examples of metals. They allow heat to move through them easily. A material through which heat can move easily is called a conductor. Aluminum and stainless steel are other metals that conduct heat as well. So when we go over here and we look, we talk about things, we say, heating of a pot on water on an electric stove is an example of, it's all touching, it's all example of conduction. Iron, silver, copper, aluminum, and stainless steel are all examples of metals that blank heat to move through them. What do? What do? They all allow heat to move through them easily. A material through which heat can move easily is called a conductor. And blank is a material like wood, plastic, rubber. Heat does not move through easily. We have not gotten to. We are now going on to page 48 if you would like to continue to follow along. Most of the pot showing on page 47 is made of plastic instead of metal. The plastic handle does not get very hot because plastic is a good insulator. An insulator is a material that does not allow not to move through easily. Wood and rubber are also good insulators. Many metal cooking utensils have handles that are made of plastic, wood, or rubber. These handles are made of these materials that are safe to touch because heat does not pass through them and burn your hand. Glass is also a good insulator. Food that will heat more slowly in a glass pot than a metal one, but it will stay hot longer. Other good insulators are leather and ceramics. Did you know air is a good heat insulator? It can help slow heat loss from heating a house to the cold air outside. Fluffy material called insulation is made with many air spaces, but put inside the walls of the house, the insulation keeps the house warm. Okay, so let's look to see if we can answer any questions before we get to convection. Blank is a material like wood, plastic, or rubber that heat does not move through easily. So what is it? It is not a conductor, it's a insulator that does not move through easily. Other good insulators are glass, blank, and ceramics. Other insulators are glass, leather, or ceramics. Fluffy material called insulation is made with many air spaces and placed inside walls of a house to keep the house warm because blank is a good insulator. What's a good insulator? What is it? What is it made of? Oops. So look at it. Fluffy material called insulation is made with many air spaces and placed inside the walls of a house to keep the house warm because blank is a good insulator. Because the material is a good insulator. Blank is the transfer of thermal energy by the movement of liquids or gases we have not gotten to. We are now moving on to convection. Convection. How does water in a pot or a stove get hot all the way through? Remember, the water at the bottom of the pot is heated by conduction. Some heat moves through the rest of the water by conduction, as particles bump into each other and transfer thermal energy. But water is also heated by convection. Convection is the transfer of thermal energy by the movement of liquid or gases. Think again about the pot of water on the stove. The water at the bottom of the pot is in contact with the metal on the bottom of the pot, so conduction occurs. The bottom of the layers of the water get hot because the metal's touching it from the metal pot. Warm water is lighter than cool water, so the warm water rises to the pot. Cool water is heavier than warmer water, so the cool water is going to sink in the pot. As the cool water reaches the bottom, it gets hot and rises. Water at the top is now cooler than cool water because of the convection currents. Convection currents transfer heat throughout the water. They also transfer heat through other liquids and other gases. So let's look over here. Blank is a transfer of thermal energy by the movement of liquid or gases. So it's not conduction, it's now convection. Warm water is blank, then cool water. Warm water is, what's warm water? Warm water is lighter than cool water. That's why it's going to rise. The warm water blank in the pot, but the cool water blank in the pot. What does the warm water do? Think about if there's a house fire, where's the warm air going? It's going to the top, and the cold air is going to sink to the bottom. That's why they always tell you if you're in a fire that you're going to want to be low to the ground because that's where the coolest air is going to be. So the warm water floats in the pot. Nope, rises. We're going to do rises in the pot, and the cool water sinks in the pot. The constant rising and sinking of warm and cool water cause blank currents. What kind of currents do they have? What kind of currents? Right here, look at that third paragraph. Cool water causes convection currents that transfer heat throughout the water. They also transfer heat through other blank and through gases. Last line. They also transfer heat through other liquids and gases. So this is liquids. Convection currents warm the blank in a room and heat through earth's blank and blank. So we haven't gotten to that part yet. So now we are on page 49. Convection currents warm the air in a room. As air near a radiator or vent is heated, it rises towards the ceiling. When air cools, it sinks. This happens over and over, so heat moves throughout the room. Convection currents also move heat through the Earth's oceans and atmosphere. Cold air sinks because it is heavier, and warm air rises because it is lighter. This ongoing cycle produces currents of moving air, which we call winds. Convection is responsible for much of the Earth's weather. You will learn more about weather in Chapter 3. So, let's see if we can answer anything. Convection currents warm the blank in a room. What's it warming? First line, air in a room and move heat through Earth's blank and blank. What are they moving it through? Earth's oceans and atmosphere. Cold air sinks because it is heavier, and warm air rises because it is lighter. This ongoing cycle produces currents of moving air called, what is it called? Ongoing producing of current, almost to the last line. It's the second to last line. It's called winds. Convection is responsible for much of Earth's blank. What's it responsible for? Our weather. Energy can be transferred by blank. I think this is going to be our last one here. Radiation in conduction and convection, particles of matter transfer thermal energy. Energy can be transferred by waves. Electromagnetic waves can transfer energy through matter also through empty spaces. The transfer of energy by electromagnetic waves is called radiation. The sun and the Earth's main source of electromagnetic waves. Energy from the sun travels millions of kilometers to Earth through empty space as electromagnetic waves. Recall from lesson 5 that the energy from the sun reaches the Earth. It warms the liquid on the Earth's surface. This energy drives the water cycle. Radiation from the sun warms many things on Earth, including the ocean surfaces, the atmosphere, and the ground, and you. Plants use part of this energy to form light and to make food. Energy from a fire also travels from the fire through the air and in waves. When the waves hit objects, the objects are heated by the radiation. This is why you can feel the heat from a fire that is across the room from where you are. Heat changes materials. Adding heat causes most materials to expand or to take up more space. Engineers must take this into account when they design bridges and other structures. Train rails need room to expand in hot sunlight. As most materials cool, they contract or take up less space. Water is an exception to this rule. When water gets cool enough, it freezes, so that's going to expand. That is why water bottles may break if you put them in the freezer. So anything but water, if it heats, it's going to expand. But if it cools, it's going to contract. But it's opposite with water. So, a lovely science. How it loves to change things just for specific people. Okay, so when we look at this, we look at energy can be transferred by, what is it going to be transferred by? Energy can be transferred by, I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. Can be transferred by waves. Electromagnetic waves can transfer energy through, you can't see. Electromagnetic waves can transfer energy through blank and blank. And also through empty blank. Right here, first paragraph under radiation. Electromagnetic waves can transfer, first one, energy through matter and also can travel through empty space. So the first one is electromagnetic waves can transfer energy through, we said, matter and also through empty space. The transfer of energy by electromagnetic waves is called, what we were studying, radiation. The blank is Earth's main source of electromagnetic waves. What is our main source of electromagnetic waves? Second paragraph under radiation. Yep, the sun is the Earth's main source of electromagnetic waves. The energy drives the blank cycle. What is it going to drive? Energy is going to drive the, right there, water cycle. Blank uses part of the energy in form of light to make food. Energy from blank. Blank uses part of the energy. What uses part of the energy? Look at it. Plants use part of the energy in form of light to make food. Energy from blank also travels the air and heats objects. Oh, that's why you can't see me. I'm not paying attention. So, energy from a blank travels through the air to heat objects. Energy from a fire also travels in objects. Okay, we've already read that it heats and expands, so we're going to turn the page. We're going to turn to our lesson review. Okay. Remember, you're going to answer your questions and make sure you're putting on Edpuzzle. Which of these will most likely happen when a hot liquid is poured into a cold glass? The glass will get warmer. The glass will get colder. The liquid will stay the same, or the liquid will get warmer. What will happen when you have a hot liquid poured into a cold glass? Number 2, the transfer of thermal energy by the movement of liquids or gas is called A, radiation, B, convection, C, insulation, or D, conduction. The transfer of thermal energy by the movement of liquids or gases. If you don't remember which one it is, go back and look at your notes. Number 3, which kind of heat transfer takes place when the sun's energy warms ocean water? Convection, conduction, or radiation? What kind of heat transfer takes place when the sun's energy warms ocean water? Keyword sun's energy there. Okay. And number 4, which material is a good conductor of heat? Aluminum, glass, plastic, or wood? Conductor. If you don't remember, go back and look in your notes.